Bonjour tout le monde, c'est Chips et Noi et nous serons vos hôtes les samedis 2 et dimanche 3 septembre à l'Accor Hotel Arena pour fêter les petites finales et les finales des LCS Europe.
Exactement, Noi, à cette occasion vous serez plus de 15 000 sur place, 15 000 personnes, ça fait du bruit, ça fait du monde. Oui, parce que soyons chauvins un peu, Noi, on est là aussi pour réclamer notre titre de meilleur public du monde.
On nous a oubliés, on parle des Brésiliens? Oui, c'est vrai.
Ils sont forts.
Ils sont bons.
Les Polonais, tous les autres, ils sont tous très bons.
Ils sont bons. Mais au bout d'un moment, rendons aux Français ce qui appartient à César. Les meilleurs, c'est nous, souvenez-vous, en 2014 pour les All-Stars.
Pareil en 2015 pour les Worlds, The Dog Pullman, on a fait du bruit, on a sublimé le supporting dans League of Legends et on compte recommencer. Donc pour ce faire, on a préparé de notre côté quelques chants, quelques...
clapper, des acclamations, des choses à dire, des néchors. Et pour cela, on a l'homme de situation, le leader charismatique,
le meilleur,
nommé Lutti.
Bienvenue au CUVTB, le centre d'entraînement intensif des viewers trop brillants. Ici, ça fait 4 ans que les meilleurs des All-Stars et des Worlds sont venus, isolés dans cette forêt, pour travailler les différents cris de guerre. Les meilleurs commentateurs français vont les coacher et nous allons découvrir ensemble les cris de guerre que nous allons devoir faire. Duke, c'est à toi.
Vous êtes prêts?
Ouais! Do it, 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 do it.
Le prochain cri de guerre nous vient directement d'outre-Atlantique. Il fait référence aux équipes américaines qui ont un petit peu du mal avec l'objectif principal de League of Legends, le Nashor. Ellie, montre-nous.
Nashor, 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 Nashor.
Le prochain est un cri d'encouragement pour toutes les équipes européennes. L'objectif, reprendre notre place de leader. Juste après la Corée. Twix, montre-nous tout ça.
Êtes-vous prêts? Ouais! We are EU! We are EU! We are EU! We are EU!
Le prochain est le chant le plus élégant et le plus raffiné que nous ayons jamais écrit. Et pour ça, rien de mieux que le meilleur casteur, le plus raffiné lui aussi. Tech Tech.
Vous êtes prêts?
Ouais! Pose ton smile sur le Nashor. Pose ton smile sur le Nashor. Pose ton smile où ça? Pose ton smile où ça? Pose ton smile sur le Nashor.
Le suivant a été élaboré par une dizaine de compositeurs et artistes indépendants. L'objectif de ce chant est de motiver les équipes qui sont frileuses au combat. Tout de suite, la démonstration avec Ellie et Duke.
Let's go team fight! Let's go team fight! Let's go team fight!
Nous touchons à la fin de notre formation qui fera de vous un spectateur de haute volée. Mais pour nous quitter, rien de mieux qu'une chanson, le tout orchestré par Chips et Noi.
Dans la jungle, terrible jungle, le Drake est mort ce soir. Un peu rapide, un peu solide, le Drake est mort ce soir. Ah oui!
Vous avez désormais toutes les cartes pour rester les meilleurs spectateurs de l'univers. Alors surtout, passez un très bon match et n'oubliez pas, Wimbowe.
Hello Twitch, it's baguette time again. Bonjour Paris! Mesdames et messieurs, bienvenue pour cette grande finale entre les deux équipes G2 et Misfits! Je vous demande, comme hier, de faire un tonnerre d'applaudissements et de rentrer en rythme avec lui. Faites du bruit pour Romain Baguetteman! Comment ça va Paris? J'ai une toute petite histoire pour démarrer. Les joueurs LCS, j'aime bien les petites histoires. Les joueurs LCS n'ont pas l'habitude d'être face à un public aussi énorme parce qu'à Berlin, quand on joue, on a un maximum de 100, 300 personnes dans l'arène. Donc, être sur scène pour un joueur, c'est la récompense ultime. C'est votre devoir, aujourd'hui, de leur montrer que la France est le plus beau pays d'accueil possible pour un joueur LCS. On va l'eau. Est-ce que vous êtes prêts pour crier un petit peu? Un tout petit peu. Écoute, mon cher Romain, on va partir sur un Paris. Quelle est ta région? Paris, quelle est ta région? Ah là là, mesdames et messieurs, c'est incroyable ce qui se passe ici. Merci à tous d'être aussi nombreux. Vous le savez, on va commencer sur un pré-show aujourd'hui, mais juste avant, je voudrais qu'on révise ensemble les 2 cris de guerre des équipes. Le premier, c'est celui de J2. Il est très simple. C'est comme Let's Go Teamfight. On le fait ensemble? Vous êtes prêts? Let's go G2. Let's go G2. Faites-le en même temps. Let's go G2. Non. C'est en 2 parties en fait. C'est pas un canon les gars, c'est en même temps. Allez. 1, 2, 3. Let's go G2. Ok. Ok. Je vous ai arrêté en cours de route, ça vous a perturbé, je l'ai senti. Je l'ai senti. On va se faire maintenant le cri de guerre de Misfits. Je vais le faire une fois, on le fait pas en canon, ensemble. C'est What Team Misfits, ok? Je vous crie What Team, vous me répondez Misfits, ça vous va? What Team Misfits! What Team Misfits! What Team Misfits! What Team Misfits! Ah là là, parfait, on va se terminer avec un très très beau pose ton smile sur le Nashor pour finir. Pose ton smile sur le Nashor. Pose ton smile sur le Nashor. Pose ton smile. Où ça? Pose ton smile. Où ça? Pose ton smile sur le Nashor. Que le show commence! C'est moi, on a encore un petit peu de temps. Écoute, on m'a dit 5 secondes, il y avait marqué 2 minutes 12, je sais pas, moi je... On a le droit de rester un petit peu? On a le droit de s'amuser tous ensemble ou pas? Parce que pour une fois qu'on est sur scène, on va faire la hall là! On va faire les halls là! Aujourd'hui, je peux courir, j'ai pas ma jupe de baguette. Il faut que je vire Romain de la scène! Il faut que je le vire! Va-t'en! Non. Ouais! On peut quand même faire la hall là. Hein. Si vous êtes prêts? Oh! Prêt! On est bon. On s'arrête pas! C'est bien. Voilà. On s'arrête pas jusqu'à la fin du timer. C'est quand même chouette. Hein. On continue, on lâche rien! Plus que 40 secondes avant le démarrage de la finale des EU LCS Summer 2017. Est-ce que vous êtes chaud? Et mesdames et messieurs, on va prouver au monde entier que nous aussi on peut faire un countdown. Plus que 20 secondes avant de 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, pas trop vite, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1,
and welcome to the LCS Summer Finals. We are coming to you live from an electric Accor Hotel Arena, where G2 and Misfits Gaming will fight for the championship trophy in tonight's best of 5 series. Now, people have been filing in here for forever. They are so ready for the action. They've been making a lot of noise as well. Romain was present from a very early time to get them shouting and get them in the zone. This was just a couple of hours ago when they wanted to get in and when they wanted to get an early seat for all of the action. Of course, championship day here. This is the pre-show, and we'll have a timer up in just a second to see how long we are away from the opening ceremony. But I'm here with my guest, Yamato Cannon, as well as Soaz. And I'd first like to welcome you, Soaz. You had a fantastic match yesterday, although it wasn't
so fantastic.
I mean, you won.
Better than nothing, yes.
Yeah, I guess that's the idea. You guys all wanted to play the final. I guess you all wanted to play the final, but isn't it good in the end that you got a really good fight out, 5 games, and you proved that you're able to beat H2K, who you might meet in the gauntlet?
For us, it was more a test than about like winning. So after the loss against Misfits, we noticed that we had to improve a lot in terms of communication and just being more like resilient to like losses. So yeah, against H2K we had a really hard first loss in the first game, and we bounced back from it. So it was a pretty good sign for us for the future.
I think so as well. Good memories. Also, Yamato, welcome to the desk. I see that you're also in the French colors for today.
Of course, representing.
Yeah. The analysis and the fashion. We know you're always there for that. Well, we saw some amazing scenes in the series between Fnatic and H2K. Let's take a look back at the sights and sounds from the amazing to see that again. So as I can imagine when you're kind of in the moment, you don't realize that all of that is happening around you, and you said, oh, it sucks that it's a 3rd place match, but those are really good memories you made there yesterday.
I think even though players don't realize it in the moment, like in the game, as you said, like I think every single player realizes it. Meanwhile, you know, when you step off stage and you just look around and you see the crowd like cheering, so yeah, you don't notice it in the game because you're really concentrated and focused. But we definitely notice when we step off stage.
Yeah, one little question though, in the end, Romain, he gave you one of the baguettes who were around his waist the whole time and he was jumping around. I don't know where it came from, how old it was, but you just bit it. I thought that was very French of you.
Yeah, I'm not sure why I did that, honestly, but it wasn't very tasty, but yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you just got to go for it, right?
Yeah, for sure. The instinct, I guess.
Yeah. Deep analysis here about eating of baguettes. But in the finals today, we will see the best League of Legends Europe has to offer. And we want you to share your highlight reel. Hit us up on Twitter at LOL Esports and send us your favorite plays from the weekend using the hashtag EULCS. But now, let's get into the matchup of the day, the final. G2 taking on Misfits Gaming. Well, they qualified for the finals through a dominating run and a performance last week, especially. And I want to start with G2 champions who had some issues during the regular season, but they managed to strike back in the playoffs. They took down Splice, they took down H2K, and obviously the summer, it wasn't all great for G2. It wasn't all as dominating as what we had come to expect from them. So what do you think their level is right now, and how much further can they go?
I feel like looking at their key players, especially Sven, Mithy, and Perks, they definitely step up when it matters. And I think when you have when you're building this dynasty, being champion, 3 splits in a row, it means that you know how to be a champion. It's about conserving your energy, using this energy at the right time, because, of course, MSI was very close to the summer split. You need to be able to conserve your energy. Perks, Mithy, they know when to step up, showed up big time in the playoffs.
Well, also, so as you are a champion, multiple champion in the EULCS, very good on the international stage, I think you can probably recognize that, the fact that you kind of have to preserve your energy. You can't just go hard the whole year long.
Well, especially for them, they had to play MSI, so that such a short time to be able to get practice going and everything. So they decided, like, I remember Smithy saying in the interview that they had 2 days off instead of 1 in the regular season. And going towards playoffs, or a bit before playoff, qualifying for playoffs, they had only 1 day, and then for playoffs, like 0 days maybe. So, yeah, I think it was pretty good for them overall to do that.
Yeah, to build in a bit more rest because they know that they'd have to perform here at the end of the year. They crushed H2K in their semifinals, and then we saw the G2 we know from MSI and we know from Spring, because versus Splice, it was very, very close. And when we look at that preserving of energy, we do have to highlight also kind of the championship material of which some of these players are made of. Mithy in that Game 5 versus Splice, Perks in that Game 5 versus Splice. That's how you know that you've got a championship squad on your hands. They were almost out, but they find those inches.
For sure, everyone's talking about how League is developing to be more of a team game, and of course it is. It isn't more of those individual plays, one guy killing everybody and just carrying a game like in Season 3 or something. But those are still the moments where you see the individuality of a player really shining through and taking over a game when it matters the most in the end.
We'll see if G2 can win today, then they would win their 4th consecutive LCS title. That has never been done before, but to do that, they'll have to beat Misfits Gaming, and it's a whole different story for them. They had a great first season in the EULCS. They said at the beginning of the year, we have a 1-year plan, and at the end of it, we want to get through Worlds. And now, a lot of teams have those plans, you know, and have those ideas, but they just executed it so well. In Spring, they got to the top 4. They got to Hamburg, they got to play there, and now they qualify for Worlds, and they could very well win the summer split. Yamato, as a coach yourself, it's very impressive to not only say it, but also do it.
Yeah, of course, you need to trust the process. The only thing that matters in the end is the final product. You need to put focus on the plan and how you're going to perceive it. And I felt like always with Misfits, they tried to focus on playing the highest level of gameplay. They didn't try to make Band-Aid solution. In the beginning of the spring split, there was a lot of rough moments where they didn't know what to do, but they always strive to play the best type of League of Legends, very macro-based.
You guys obviously didn't manage to beat Misfits Gaming, and I feel like most teams underestimated them a little bit. They were definitely underdogs. I mean, they were one of the weakest teams going into playoffs. Do you think that also helped them, that they got to catch everyone off guard?
I don't think it's that they. I mean, I can only speak for
you guys, yeah?
myself and our team. I don't think we necessarily underestimated them. It was more due to our practice. I felt like they probably had just much better practice overall than we did, and they just probably felt better in the day that we played against them, and it just showed a lot. Like they played good overall. They play standard but good, and we just couldn't really do much against them.
Yeah, Yamato, when we were talking about Misfits Gaming, that came up time and time again. You were saying, I just think they were the team that practiced the most, simply put.
I think the main thing with their coach is I get this feeling that they're always come in prepared depending on every meta. I feel like always when you face them, you don't see any slip-ups in draft, and I felt like when they came into this playoffs, they were the ones that figured all the things out, that the Nara is a priority pick, that the Zaya is powerful, and everyone's copying them in the end.
And all their ducks in a row, and for now there's nowhere to go but up from here. They could win today, a crowning achievement, and let's not forget, if they win, world's first seed is on the line today, which could be important down the line when we see the group draw and we see who their opponents end up being at Worlds. Now if we look at the clock, 18 minutes, 53 seconds until the opening ceremony. So let's dial in a bit deeper on the teams and some of the individual players. For Misfits, it'll be a huge test going up against G2, a team that's won the EU LCS the last 3 splits, ready for the finals yet again, looking to continue their dynasty. There aren't enough words to describe how good G2 has been doing. So let's highlight some players. Perks, for instance. Perks, you know, not the best at the beginning of the spring split, and then versus Febiven, he completely dismantled him. Is he now, without doubt, the best mid in Europe, Soaz?
I talked to Cabs a bit about it, like about their best of 5, and yeah, so Cabs told me a bit about it, and he said that it was more like Febiven misplaying. That like obviously Perks was played really good, and I think in this particular game, Febiven was like 25 CS up, like 65 to like 40 or something, and he had a lot of pressure, and he just really misplayed and got ultimated, and then gave up a kill 1v1, and that basically set up Perks to like just came back from this bad game that he had early on, and then he just carried over and was like 6-0 early, but it was more coming from a poor play from Febiven, from what Caps was telling.
Well, I guess both are important, right? You got to be able to keep your lane, but if you then make that one mistake, that gives it all
basically,
away.
Yeah, the good thing is that he snowballed his lead more than like got a kill and then died after that. He just like kept snowballing his lead, so that was the good part from it.
Yeah, Perk's dominating performance there. A couple of other players I want to highlight. Trick, a bit of an ambivalent character. You know, sometimes he does really well, then sometimes he flies under the radar. But what we do know is now when it matters in playoffs, he showed up in the end. He showed up versus H2K. He showed up at the mid-season invitational when it mattered most. So is that a player that you can always put your trust in and think, well, he's always going to perform, or are you not completely sure ahead of finals?
Well, something that I noticed while scouting G2 before we played them is that Trick has played a lot less solo queue this season, and jungle as a role is a role that you need to put a lot of time and effort into. Not necessarily only play, but you need to make sure that you're ahead of the curve, you need to understand most matchups, and you also need to make sure that you have the right pathings when you come into it. And Trick was always the guy that was ahead of the curve. He was the one that revolutionized everything, and that was because he put in the time. When you played dynamic queue, it was like, yeah, I want to be in team with Trick because that's a free win. But in the end, it was like, yeah, I think that has faltered a bit because, of course, it's exhausting to maintain that level.
Yeah, that could be just what you said. You have to preserve your energy and choose your battles. However, when we look at that lineup and go to that line, Sven is someone who he's always performing. He always does amazingly well. Of course, you know him very well, as well. You used to play together with him. So that Sven and Midi bottom lane, they probably can make a big difference in this matchup.
Yeah, I heard recently, like, since I played with him in Origin, he was more like, he had more of a passive role, and Mithi was like leading more the bot lane and the foreman overall. And I heard since he, like, maybe not as soon as he joined G2, but more right now, he have more of a leading role, and he tends to talk a lot more about like bot lane and trading and all these like bot lane things that you're supposed to talk about. So he's more, you have more voice in the team. Right now in G2.
Even more development in G2. While on stage with the players tonight is G2's coach Youngbuck, who led the team to success both in Europe and on the international stage. Let's hear what he has to say before today's finals.
Thank you, Shucks. I'm joined here by Youngbuck ahead of G2's 4th final in a row. Pretty tense atmosphere back here, of course. How is the pressure for G2 here, trying to keep this streak alive?
I think there's quite a lot of pressure on us, even though we've already qualified for Worlds, because we have the opportunity to write history today, being the first team that actually wins 4 consecutive finals. So there's a lot of pressure on us, but I think it's a very healthy kind of pressure. I think it's good to have that extra little bit of motivation going into the matches.
Do you think G2 thrives under this kind of pressure? And also, do you add more to yourself looking for a streak like that, or is that just kind of the natural flow?
I think it's natural, but I also think it's an advantage for us to have a lot more pressure on us, and compared to the pressure that, for example, Hansama has playing in his own hometown. So I think the pressure is a big advantage for us.
We'll see whether that pans out today. And another thing I'm looking forward to seeing is G2 spoke after MSI in Brazil about how important the crowd being behind G2 was. The Paris crowd here have chanted for both teams of H2K and Fnatic yesterday. Are you anticipating some support coming out despite being against Hansama's hometown?
Well, the French crowd seemed really incredible yesterday, very loud for both teams. So while I think they will be rooting mostly for Hansama, we can also expect some support. And we will probably feed off of that, yes.
I'm looking forward to seeing how you feed off of that. One thing I want to bring up, though, today, we've seen a lot of tweets out of G2 and the players talking about how this is going to be a comfortable series. Now, Misfits' opponents in the playoffs so far have underestimated them. Is this something that's on your radar as a coach going into today?
I don't think there's such a thing as underestimating an opponent in the finals, playing for such a big crowd. There's just no way that there's not going to be a big adrenaline rush and there's going to be a very sharp focus when the match actually comes.
Glad to hear your focus today. Looking forward to seeing if you guys can make history today. Back to the analyst desk to take us closer to our finals.
Thank you very much, Stress. Always nice to hear from Youngbuck there. A couple of interesting things. Obviously, talking about the pressure and possible underestimation. I did see a couple of tweets from Perks just this morning about calling PETA for Misfits and the Bunnies if things didn't go well. But I feel like that's kind of part of their warm-up ritual. Both some players on Misfits, like Maxlore and Perks, they are very comfortable in the banter, and I don't think it lets it influence their performance at all.
I think it's just about making it more interesting. It's like you put like these invisible bets kind of, and people call you out for it. It's like you stir up the emotions of everyone on both sides. I think it's always positive.
I definitely think it's nice. Do you think it could have anything to do with it? Youngbuck also talked about pressure, and Stress asked about, you know, if you've won so many titles, don't you get a bit comfortable? And you have been in that position when you guys were winning so much with Fnatic. How did you try and counteract that?
I think it really depends of your matches overall. Like if you win convincingly every single match, then you're gonna probably tend to become a bit more lazy. But even if you win and your matches are like really close, it's not like you feel like, yeah, you won, right? You still feel like you have to improve and everything. So I think it depends a lot about their seasons overall. And obviously, like this season for G2, they weren't super convincing, right? So I think they will definitely don't underestimate Misfits, and they will try their hardest. And they probably came here with a really good plan coming.
I think something that is very hard to do when you are on the top like you were in this split is that you have to kind of shadow box, because you are a product of your region, because you need to, in the end, you need to improve past everyone else. It's not that someone exposes your weakness within your region, then it's very simple. We need to practice on just this. And when you have to shadow box yourself, it becomes much more difficult to, in the end, improve in that fashion.
Yeah, fantastically put. Well, let's dial in on their opponents then. Misfits Gaming, as said, they have been the underdogs in the playoffs, but they crushed the oppositions. And G2 or Misfits will also be the first team without a semi-final bye to win the entire EU LCS. We highlighted some players on the other team and on Misfits Gaming. I do want to highlight Maxlore. We obviously had the one-year plan, but then we had the big change coming in with Cacao to Maxlore. And so, as I'd love to know from you what you thought initially about the change with Maxlore coming into that lineup, and how do you think it's evolved?
Well, obviously we cannot really know how Cacao was like performing with them in the team, like how much he was communicating and all these kind of things. In terms of like mechanics, if I can say that, I think Maxlore is pretty good. Cacao was probably on the same. I think what Maxlore brings to them is obviously, like, as everyone know, just communication-wise, he's more of a leader, and he tends to like talk a lot more probably than Cacao did. So it just helps a lot a team if you have 5 players communicating to each other and feeding information, and then someone can make a call out of this information, right? And eventually Cacao wasn't, like, he was probably giving information, but not as much as Maxlore is doing. And they can probably get better calls out of the information that they are giving.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I kept my ear close to the ground when I made my transition into Vitality, and I heard a lot of positive things about Maxlore, his impact in Roccat, the shot calling kind of position he took part in that team, and also looking at how much solo queue plays, his champion seed that Vedios beautifully put it, and he has an enormous amount of knowledge, does the thing that Trick used to do. I feel like he's the one ahead of the curve, and I feel like he's the one that kind of makes up the interesting patterns.
Yeah, that makes the matchup today very interesting as well. Also, something you said was Kakao is a great player, but sometimes if you are a developing lineup with some new players, that might be too much, right? Too much in that lineup.
I think we noticed a lot of the classic Kakao where he kind of farms for late game, like this kind of Skarner thing that he did at Worlds, where he kind of picks his champion, farms it out. And I think earlier on in the season it worked out fine because he made up this kind of path where he did this full clear with Lee Sin, and at that time it was revolutionizing. Everyone did like level 3 gank, he did full clear, all of a sudden Lee Sin was level 6. It was like, wow, Kakao is out jungling and winning the early game. But in reality he just came up with this pattern that made him ahead, killed golems, and I was like, wow, he's super far ahead.
I'm sorry, it's very, I like that we have this serious analysis going on and then the crowd was singing amazingly and it's kind of a nice symbiosis. But next interview, because in his first season in the EU LCS, Hussein Mousvi has led Misfits Gaming all the way to the finals. Stress is with him to get his thoughts on facing G2.
Thank you, Shugs. I'm joined here by Hussein Mousvi, the coach of Misfits Gaming, ahead of your first finals appearance here in the EU LCS. You've had a magnificent playoffs run so far. What, in your opinion, has worked so well for Misfits up to this point?
I think Misfits, as a team, has always been much better in a best-of-5 scenario. And so once we knew what teams we were playing and how to prep for them, we knew what weaknesses to exploit. And I think we did a good job of them. And on top of that, we've worked a lot on our gameplay and our execution, and the guys have done an excellent job with it.
It's been magnificent to watch. Very fun to see Misfits making their way through the playoffs. Now that you're in the finals, is anything different about the preparation going up against the Kings of Europe, G2 Esports?
We prepared the same way as we did for any other team. Look at how they play, what they like to do, and then see if there's any weaknesses we can exploit. Outside of that, it's just making sure everyone's like mentally prepared to play the game at 100%.
I'm glad that you talk a little bit about the mental game here because, of course, you've got a mix of some veterans and a few players that are playing their first LCS finals here as well, especially with Hansama playing in front of a hometown crowd. How is the atmosphere for Misfits today?
I mean, it's a testament to how good my rookies are. They're in the first year, they're in the finals of EU LCS. So I'm not so worried about whether they can show up on stage or not. If anything, I'm more worried about G2 because I think they might underestimate them.
Interesting. Definitely seen a few tweets flying around from G2's players today that may indicate that. We'll see if that ends up happening. But I want to talk about the year as a whole, the one-year plan. Hussein, you've talked about it multiple times on our show, and you've achieved that. You've already made your way to Worlds as that one-year plan is complete. What's next for Misfits Gaming?
Next is just to see how far we can go at Worlds. Going in, we're going in with big goals as always. We've always done big goals as Misfits, and we'll be going in to see if we can win the whole thing.
Awesome. Looking forward to today's series. Back to everybody at the analyst desk. We're getting so close to our finals.
Thank you very much, Stress. Always amazing to hear from Hussein Mousvi, who's been, well, it's very hard to always judge a coach, isn't it? But the things that he's been vocal about, I have a very good feeling about the way that's going with that team. He points out the fact, don't get too nervous about who you're playing, just find out their weaknesses and play your own game and be calm. And he said, well, G2 should be. I'm a bit more worried about them. But however, you never really know as a player, I feel like as a new player, how you're going to react when you're on that stage and if you're going to freeze up or not. So do we see any risk of that? He had a lot of faith.
I think they're playing here with less pressure than most teams would because they're both qualified for Worlds, right? So it's just like, it's a bit less pressure. Like obviously they are still gonna be pressured because it's a big arena, there's a big crowd obviously, and everyone is looking at them, and they still really wanna win and wanna perform. They don't wanna they just wanna run it down and feed obviously. So, but yeah, it's a bit less pressure than usual. So I think it's gonna help both teams, right? So we are probably gonna see a better league than usual, I think, because when you feel confident, then you're gonna play better. Usually, when you play these matches and both teams are really nervous because of qualifying for Worlds, all these kind of things, you're gonna tend to see like a slow first game and adaptation for the game 2 and game 3, and then you're starting seeing much better games, game 2, game 3, game 4, right? And I think it's gonna start really good in the series.
Well, this is really nice to hear because obviously always when it's a final versus G2, you want to see the 5 games and you want to see it all, but they always find a way to even maybe drop the first game and then do really well in the rest of the best of 5. But this bodes well. I feel like Misfits really, they should have a chance, obviously, but how big of a chance do you think they have, Yamato?
I feel like the big thing they had against Unicorns of Love and Fnatic was that they came in with a very good understanding of the meta. We heard Reckless talking about it yesterday in his interview, how Hans Sama showed them what he's supposed to play with the Xayah coming in as a high priority. I feel like coming into a final, when we've seen Misfits play a bunch of times, G2 as a team very good at adapting. I think it's going to look a lot different because I think G2 will come in with an idea that will counteract that.
Yeah, let's hope so and see and hope we get a lot of good games. Now with the opening ceremony right around the corner, let's check in with our friends from O Gaming and get their thoughts ahead of the finals. I think we're gonna check in with them in just a second. Oh, there they are. Hello.
Oh,
la surprise.
Bonjour.
Bonjour, Shox.
Hey.
How are you?
Moi très bien. Comment ça va là-bas?
Ça va super bien.
We are fine, actually.
Hey, bonjour Paris.
It's really loud.
Oh, fantastique, fantastique. Ils sont chauds. Ici, on est en train de parler des joueurs les plus importantes pour les séries aujourd'hui. Donc, entre G2 et Misfits Gaming, we're talking about the most important players. Who do you have your eye on?
I think everyone in the French crowd and on the desk has his eyes on Sama, of course. The French guy here.
Yeah, he's young, but he has one hell of a talent, and we are really looking for huge performance from the young boy tonight in front of the crowd, from the French crowd who's cheering for him. It will be tough because Sven is facing him, but still, it will be.
He's a bit in the same position that Sven used to be in like 2 years ago. And now Hans Sama has to prove himself. He has the talent for sure. He can become that great AD carry that we all hope he will become. And well, the whole crowd is waiting for him.
Chips, est-ce que tu crois qu'il est nerveux? Is he a bit nervous?
C'est difficile à dire. It's difficult to say.
Peut-être, maybe.
But the thing that is sure is that the French crowd will be behind Hansama, n'est-ce pas? Vous le soutiendrez, Hansama?
Oh, fantastic. Paris, vous êtes incroyable. Thank you guys very much for talking to us and have a great time. Au revoir.
Au revoir. Au revoir.
Ah, that was cool. That was really nice to talk to those guys who have, honestly, yesterday we had Zabutino on the decks, now we have Soaz, so I'm glad we have, you know, some of the French players and also some of the French casters joining us for this fantastic event. We are not too far away from the opening ceremony, 2 minutes exactly, so it's time to get our final thoughts in order. We've talked so much about Misfits Gaming, how wonderful it would be for them if they can do it, if they can't, if G2 is going to take their 4th consecutive title. So Soaz, give me your prediction. Who will be the champion here today and why?
I think G2 is gonna take it. I was thinking between a 3-1 and 3-2. I would say probably a 3-1. I think that Misfits is playing the same style as G2, but G2 is a bit stronger in it and have stronger player in certain positions. So I think G2 is gonna take it 3-1 in my opinion.
3-1. Which position would be definitely the strongest over Misfits?
I mean, I think the experience of Mithy and Sven is gonna impact a lot the game as I see it. So I think it's definitely gonna be a lot on Mithy and Sven.
Mithy and Sven. Yamato, what do you think?
I have my eyes on G2. I think Misfits took a lot of their games because they came in more prepared. G2 as a team, I think the only question marks I have is where they put the Rakan, where they put the Xayah. They haven't played too much of it. Also, how Expect will deal with the Gnar. I think putting Expect on Gnar will be the easy solution, but in the cases where, of course, Alfari will take the Gnar, what will happen? A lot of question marks in the draft, but I think G2 will come in prepared with a Kog'Maw, maybe a Jace. We will see.
We will see indeed what happens, but we have 2 predictions here for G2, so it'll be up to Misfits Gaming to surprise us. The wait is almost over as we are just moments away from the main event. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to kick